policies. Oh my gosh. See, I wish they would tell us more about that because I honestly don't know. I know she's done some good work with immigration, even though they say opposite.
What do they say?
Well, what is it? She's the border czar.
She's the fake border czar.
It's her fault that all these immigrants are coming over, to cross the border right now, which I don't think they are.
People have been saying that Kamala is a border czar, or whatever that means. Is there an issue at the border? Has Kamala done anything about it? Or was there not anything to do about it, and so they're just kind of making things up?
So I don't think there's an issue with the border at all. They say the border crisis is causing all these drug issues and is causing crime, but in my opinion, there's crime everywhere. You can go to New York, you can go to Canada, you can go anywhere across the world, and there's going to be crime regardless.
Sometimes I just think we're screwed. Joining me now, Brittany Mayer, independent reporter, founder of Rooted Wings. Hey, Brittany, how are things at the border? Because these brain-dead drones don't think there's any problems at all.
I just want to know where these people came from. Are they living, honestly, are they living in a cave? Because I will tell you what, I live in San Diego, California, and my beat is consistently the border. And I actually just got breaking numbers in for you, Jesse, so you get it hot off the press. We, as of October, here in San Diego, California, have brought in 200,000 illegal foreigners. That only counts those who check themselves in. So it doesn't include anyone who sneaks in by dark of night. It doesn't include the boat crashers that we have consistently been getting on our sand. We are looking at over 155,000 single adults, primarily males, who have been invading us here in San Diego. And it has enormously changed the safety and the horizon of what it looks like to be in San Diego, California. So in terms of what those people said, it's sad because they're just clearly not informed and they're not staying current with what's actually happening to our nation right now.
I can't believe they've just completely trashed one of our great cities. Gosh, I've had some good times in San Diego back when I was a young, stupid Marine. Okay, Brittany, describe the city itself, because I remember the San Diego I had fun in back in the day. What has happened? What's it like? What's daily life like? How's it changed?
It's so sad. You remember the good old days, as do I. I'm a native San Diegan, and I remember even just as a young adult being able to go downtown San Diego and feel relatively safe. It is a whole new world. We have so much. The homelessness is out of control right now. There are tent cities all over San Diego, California. We have drug use it's just an open market for drug use. It's really become just an unsafe environment to where now, if I was a young adult, I would not feel safe as a woman downtown in San Diego. But get this, we as taxpayers down here in San Diego are paying annually $5 million for attorney fees for these illegal foreigners who come through our border. So not only are we bringing them in and providing sanctuary status, which is largely in part due to Kamala Harris, but on top of that, we're saying, hey, come on in, invade us like Normandy, and then we're going to pay for your legal fees.
Yeah, you know what? Focus on that Kamala Harris, her role in all this. What did she do in California that has helped this process along for the illegals?
Yeah, so, we're living through the revising of Kamala right now. Time magazine just threw her up on their cover looking, as Trump said, looking beautiful, looking like she's shiny and new. And she's not at all a part of the destruction of America over the last 4 years. But her reputation precedes her. And it goes back to 2004 when she became the DA of San Francisco. Nothing good comes from San Francisco, California. San Francisco has spit out Kamala Harris, it spit out Gavin Newsom. We have Pelosi, we have Senator Scott Wiener, but Kamala Harris got her start in San Francisco. She was a champion. This was 2 decades in the making of California being a sanctuary state. That's what she ran on. So for her to now say that she's going to champion securing our border. It's just not reality. For 20 years, she has pried open our border and championed bringing in illegal foreigners by the droves.
Speaking of by the drove, it's being reported now, New York Times, many other places, that immigrants are becoming citizens at the fastest clip in U.S. history. And wow, Brittany, that is amazing because it seems like it's right before an election. How convenient is that?
Yeah, it's concerning, especially concerning the news that just broke. Apparently, it happened 4 months ago that almost all American Social Security IDs were stolen. And in many states, those are a piece of the puzzle in order for you to be able to vote. So it's all very convenient timing. I think that Americans need to be on high alert that what we are seeing right now is subversive communism being put on the ballot. And if Christians, specifically, I'm going to speak to Christians right now, if Christians don't realize what's at stake, that we have a ticket who is hell-bent on murdering our most innocent all the way up to birth, and who knows what happens with botched abortion survivors. Kamala Harris's track record on that is despicable. We have that on the ballot. We have gender bending our kids and creating complete confusion. Tim Walz threw tampons in boys' bathrooms, and people want to joke about that, but it's actually very serious that we are targeting our youth and indoctrinating them with this complete dystopian lie that boys can become girls, that we have inflation at record high. People want to say inflation's coming down. It's because, you look at it as gaining weight. If you've consistently gained weight over 4 years, and then you're like, oh, but this month, instead of gaining 11 pounds, we only gained 3 pounds. Okay, you're still gaining weight. And we're so swollen right now on inflation that now you have Kamala Harris coming out saying that she's going to price gouge. This is subversive communism. She is all about equity, opening up our borders, really diminishing what makes America special and what makes being an American citizen special. So if Christians don't realize that we are called to be salt and light, we are to push back against evil, we are to be the antidote to darkness, then we're going to lose this election. And it's going to get a hell of a lot worse for America.
Yeah, and speaking of gaining weight, all the legions of single feminists who are going to crawl across broken glass specifically so they can murder their babies. It really is. Well, you know what? Here's a good video of it, courtesy of Libs at TikTok. I want every Christian to pay attention to this video right here.
I am at St. John Paul II Catholic Church in Thornton, Colorado. A guy came up to me and told me that we needed to vote for Trump, and I told him if Trump wins, I would leave the country. I also told him that basically the 2025 plan would take away many of my rights. Well, he got mad. I tell you, these right-wing Christians are the most dangerous people on earth, and they are not your friend if you disagree with them. You are the enemy. What does that tell you about where we are as a country? It's not safe.
Brittany, 30% of American Christians aren't even registered to vote. This is something that I scream about all the time. It's enough to make my freaking head pop off. We sit in the pews on Sunday and learn about right and wrong and good and evil, and people can't even get off the couch to go vote in elections. What is wrong with America's feminized Christianity?
Yeah, it's a huge, huge problem. We are entering uncharted territory for America. And I don't say that to be an alarmist. I am a student of communism, because if we don't know our enemy, then we can't defeat it. I think we have lightened the reality of the times in which we are living in right now. We are living on the precipice of America going full throttle communist. And the reality is we have two people right now on, I guess they're on the ballot. All of that with the coup that happened, we've got two people on the ballot that will bring communism into America. Their track record says that they will. And we have people like the clip that you just showed who are so ignorant to think that Christians are the threat. I'll tell you what the threat is. The threat is Christians not showing up to the ballot box in November, not getting engaged, not realizing that our role is to be the salt and the light in a world that has gone completely mad, and to restrain evil, to restrain communism, to say, no thanks, commies, we're not going to go with your way. We're going to keep the grand experiment of America, the pride of being an individual in this nation, alive and well for our future generations. But like you said, 25 million Christians in America don't vote. That's a huge, huge problem. I spoke with two pastors today, one of which who reminded me that we are not just citizens of heaven, we're also citizens of America. And if we know that there is evil and we do nothing about it, then we're just as good as salt who has lost its flavor. We have got to realize that we are not here to propose marriage to Trump or to make him our priest or pastor. This is a game of chess. And what is at stake cannot be understated. We have to take back our authorities as Christians and to engage.
Control 644, all my units at the airport, be advised. The motorcade is at Air Force One, so just hold your road closure until I tell you otherwise.
Control 302, I just want to let everybody know, great work out there. You know, we put that together ad hoc. Appreciate all the resources coming over. You guys did a fantastic job.
What am I listening to there? What happened on the 17th in Las Vegas, Nevada? Joining me now, my friend Jordan Schachtel. He's an independent journalist. You should go subscribe to his Substack, The Dossier. He always has juicy stuff on there. He's the first one I heard this reporting from. Jordan, that was a bunch of fuzzy audio from a police radio. I don't know what I'm listening to. What was happening there? What happened in Las Vegas on July 17th?
Yeah, so if you recall, your audience recalls, that was when at least that evening, the White House had announced that President Biden had canceled his schedule due to a positive COVID test. And then, of course, he would later go to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We would not see him for a week. He would give off the presidency or the nomination to Kamala Harris. So it preceded a lot of events that would follow to what we're dealing with today. What we found at the Dossier, interviewing lots and lots of police and security sources that took part in that day, was that no, the Secret Service informed them that the president had some type of medical emergency. We had not yet had the audio clips. So the other day, the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project got those clips via Freedom of Information Act request and released them to the public. And in those audio clips, you hear police dispatchers saying that Secret Service has informed them that they need to undergo a Code 3 response, which is an emergency with lights and sirens, and take the president to a level 1 trauma center. Certainly doesn't sound like COVID to me. And then in addition to that, you had additional broadcasts concluding that there was some type of emergency situation. They later rerouted the president to Air Force One, which has a full, medical emergency suite and physicians on board if necessary. And then the rest. President Biden would disappear into the night for several days after.
Yeah, and I remember the White House when they were kind of asked about this whole thing. Well, this is what they said.
Officers were racing to secure a hospital emergency room on July 17th. They were under the impression that President Biden was having a medical emergency. What was it?
He was not. As you know, the president, when we were in Vegas, tested positive for COVID. We let you all know, and then we flew back here. Outside of that, there was no medical emergency. People are still testing positive for COVID.
Okay, so obviously that's a big fat lie. Jordan, you're the one with all the secret sources at the Dossier. Do we have a theory on this thing? Has anybody whispered in your ear? Is he okay?
Well, he's a very old man and not doing well for his age, but I haven't been able to confirm the exact diagnosis. I'll leave that to his doctor, who's unfortunately a business partner of the Biden family, so I don't know if he's going to give you the answer. But, the White House and now candidate Kamala Harris have proven that they're willing to lie about Biden's cognitive condition, and they've been doing so for years on end. So we're going to need more insiders to give us answers about what's going on with the president. He intends on serving for several more months. He wants to last until Inauguration Day, which is kind of shocking how far gone he is. I was reviewing his schedule over the past week. He's spent more than half of it on vacation. He's going on vacation again on Friday. He does maybe one public event every few days and doesn't speak. So it's just so bizarre what's going on now. And we have to kind of just go back to pretending that he's a sentient person.
Yeah, no, at least there's nothing going on in the world. It's not like Iran is making threats against us daily, and Ukraine has officially launched an offensive into Russian territory. No big deal. It's not like we need a president.
Yeah, it's wild. And it certainly doesn't seem like Kamala Harris is the commander-in-chief either. So it leads us to this question: who's making those calls to send our aircraft carriers into the Mediterranean, into the Persian Gulf? I really have no idea. I wish the corporate media was interested in this. They have big budgets and foreign correspondents. And, you saw yesterday, I don't know if you caught it, but this Washington Post reporter in the White House presser asked if, they were concerned about Elon Musk and Trump talking, with this misinformation that they're about to spread, and what can they do about it? That's not only his ideology, it's shared throughout the entire White House press corps. So they're all on one team. They all move as one unit, and they're all on the team of, on the Biden administration's team. So, we're just not going to get answers from these people, but there's just so many basic questions about who's in charge of our republic that I love to get answers to.
Reckoning. How many times have you heard me call for something like that for various things? How many times have we talked about that when it comes to Afghanistan and what was done there? What was done to the troops? 20 years of blood and misery over in that place, and then we just ran out on a mission they couldn't even define. And the way we ran out on that mission, getting another 13 of our warriors killed right before we vaporized 10 innocent civilians, is something that should be investigated and people should be held to account. My friend Jerry Dunleavy wrote a book with my friend James Hassan. The book is called Kabul. Highly recommend you pick up that book if you want to know what we did over there. So, Jerry, before we get to what you did today with the resignation, could you please talk about this foreign affairs investigative team? What were you on? How'd you get on this thing? What were the promises?
Right. So before I joined the House Foreign Affairs Committee, I was an investigative reporter, reported on Afghanistan, then wrote the book Kabul with James Hassan, fellow, I wasn't a veteran, but, Afghan war veteran. James was fantastic co-author. After being a reporter and writing this book, I was asked if I would come on to the committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and help them with their investigation as a senior investigator. What I was told we would be doing. In fact, what I said we needed to do as part of me coming on is I said, look, I'm a reporter. I'm an investigative reporter. I investigate things. That's what I do. If I come on, I want to be part of something serious, something sweeping in scope, something that's going to hold people accountable, get answers, go down every investigative avenue that we need to go down. And with the goal of accountability for the people that screwed this up, and the goal of making sure that this doesn't happen again.
Jerry, can I pause you just for a moment? Who invited you to come on? Who were the people who wanted today called Jerry, get on our committee? Who was it?
Senior staff members of the committee asked me to come on, and I was hired personally by
McCall.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. We met in his office and talked about the investigation, and during that meeting about bringing me on, he made the same promises as he's made publicly. So I'm not really giving anything even really away here. That the investigation is going to leave no stone unturned. That we're going to do everything in our power to get answers about what happened. answers for the Abbey Gate Gold Star families. And look, I don't want to be here. I truly wish that the promises that Chairman McCall made were followed through on. I wish that I was coming on your show to talk about all of the incredible things that the investigation had found, all of the people we had held accountable. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. It's not just that those promises weren't kept, it's that there was not even a real effort to keep those promises.
Okay. So
the committee
that leads. Hold on, sorry to interrupt. That leads me to what you did today, because we haven't even gone into that yet. What did you do today publicly, and why? And I swear I won't interrupt again. The floor is yours, Jerry. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So today I did, actually on Friday, I sent in my letter of resignation. I resigned in protest from the committee. I made that public today. After speaking with the Abbey Gate Gold Star families, letting them know kind of what I had done and what I was planning to do. It had to be done. The committee is not doing the basic things that it needs to do. The things that we have done oftentimes have been treating people with kid gloves, people that share a big piece of responsibility for what happened. Our hearing with Zalmay Khalilzad, who was the U.S.'s top negotiator with the Taliban in 2020 and in 2021. So President Biden kept him on. A nefarious guy. All of the evidence points to this guy is a bad actor. And when we brought him in, we treated him with kid gloves, and that was extremely disappointing. We brought in Chairman Milley and General McKenzie, the two highest-ranking military officials at the time of the withdrawal in 2021. They share their own piece of the blame as well, and the committee, the chairman, and the committee, in my view, deliberately let them off the hook. And so the things that we have done, we have not done in a serious way. And there are tons of things that I've been insisting for many, 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 many months that we do. Questions that we need to ask. We failed to bring in the top military commanders on the ground during the NEO. That would be General Donahue, General Farrell Sullivan, Rear Admiral Vaisley. I've been saying for many months that we need to bring these guys in. They're the ones that can talk about interactions with the Taliban. They're the ones that can talk about whatever agreements or deals the U.S. military reached to rely on the Taliban to provide security outside of that airport. They're the ones that can tell us about the Taliban sometimes refusing to do what we asked during the evacuation, the Taliban beating up Americans, the Taliban beating up and killing our Afghan allies, these things happening within view of our Marines at the gates. They can talk about us asking the Taliban to search or raid ISIS-K locations in Kabul during the evacuation, and the Taliban telling us no. I mean, and this is what I'm giving you here is just a thin slice, the tip of the iceberg, in terms of the things that we should have been doing, the basic things, if we wanted to get answers and accountability for the Gold Star families, for all of the U.S. service members that have died in this 20-year war, for all of their Gold Star families, and for the American public, because I am worried that the U.S. government, State Department, the Pentagon, the intelligence community, they have not learned their lessons because they haven't had to, because no one's been held accountable. So accountability is important for its own sake, but I am extremely worried that without the lessons learned and without the accountability, something much worse is going to happen. We are going to be in a potentially serious war with a great power in the near future. And if we don't learn these lessons, there's going to be a lot more Gold Star families, a lot more unnecessary Gold Star families. And so that is why, after a lot of soul searching, I thought that it was best to blow the whistle on the inaction and incompetence of the committee, and to tell people what's going on, what they need to know, and to try and get this out in the public so that people know that their elected representatives are not doing real oversight and not holding people accountable the way they should be.
Mobilizing a whole of country effort to cut American cancer deaths in half by 2020 and within 25 years.
Okay, joining me now, Victoria Coates, VP of Foreign Policy at Heritage Foundation. The only reason I played that for you is we have a carrier group in the Middle East right now. Ukraine is officially in control of 390 miles of Russia, and we don't have a president. Who's running the country? Victoria, who's running the country right now? Who gave the order to the carrier group? Does anyone actually know?
This is a huge concern because at this point, the president seems completely checked out. We have pictures of the commander-in-chief of the United States snoozing soundly on the beach over the weekend. I've never seen a picture of an American president sleeping before. I mean, obviously they have to sleep, but I mean, this isn't something you advertise in a time of crisis. And as you say, Jesse, I mean, we have massive assets flowing into the Middle East. We have a potential attack by the Iranians on Israel. We have the situation in Ukraine, and nobody's even talking about the Pacific. And we're not sure who's calling the shots. Do we have four hands on the wheel, which is deeply dangerous? Is the vice president calling the shots? It's very murky, and that makes the situation we're in all the more perilous.
No, it really does. Okay, Victoria, break down for us what's going on with Iran and Israel. Iran has all this bluster. Israel assassinates a bunch of people. That was really cool, by the way. And Iran says, you're going to die, kill all the Jews, and all the stupid stuff they normally say. But this attack has still not come. It's been, a week now? It's still not come. What are they doing? Preparing?
It's actually 2 weeks, and there are two possibilities of what's happened. And what Israel did 2 weeks ago was assassinate Ismail Haniyeh, who was the political head of Hamas. I actually don't differentiate between the political and the military wings of Hamas. I think they're all terrorists. But in this case, he was technically the political head who had been living in Qatar. He was visiting Iran for the inauguration of Iran's new president, and he was assassinated literally in his bedroom in a safe house. And so the Israelis demonstrated an ability, which they have demonstrated before, but this was a very dramatic example of it, of being able to reach into Iran and touch senior leadership who are technically very well protected. And so I think that should be what we'd think of in a sports analogy as being a brushback pitch for the Iranians. They were very startled and very concerned. And if the United States had leaned in hard at the same time and said, oh, by the way, we fully back Israel, you guys should back down, de-escalate, I think we would have more clarity on our situation. But we're now 2 weeks out from that. So either they are backing down or they're preparing something that's more substantial than what they did in April. And we're unfortunately in the position of just having to wait and see. We're not shaping events at all.
Okay. I have too much I need to get to with you, Victoria. I could just stay with you for an hour on this stuff. But ISIS, there are rumors now of an ISIS resurgence, reemergence, however you want to use that word, in Syria. Please don't tell me these scumbags are coming back.
Unfortunately, the scumbags are back in town. And what we're seeing is we'd started to see some burblings from ISIS in Africa. We just had the spectacle of all the Taylor Swift concerts being canceled in Vienna because of ISIS in Europe. And now we have reporting that they are reemerging in the site of their former caliphate. And the reason this is so maddening is when President Trump came into office, one of the first things he did, I remember clearly in January of 2017, is he went to the Pentagon, gathered the Joint Chiefs in the tank, and said, okay, let's defeat ISIS. Let's not inconvenience them. Let's not manage them. Let's defeat them. We got to wipe this caliphate off the map. And the United States military performed brilliantly as they did, and we were successful in 6 months. What you have to do is give the military the tools they need, give them a specific mission, let them complete it, and then end the mission so we don't drift into these endless wars. And it was one of the great things anyone's ever done for the region. Nobody likes ISIS. Even ISIS doesn't doesn't like ISIS. They're awful. So this was very positive. But in the permissive atmosphere that's been created by President Biden and Vice President Harris, there isn't that kind of strong approach. They've reverted to the Obama playbook, which was managing a problem rather than solving it. And so that's what they're doing. And we have heaven knows how many U.S. troops in Syria. They've been there for a decade. It's not clear under what authorities. And I'm just deeply concerned that they're big enough to be a target, but not big enough to actually defend themselves effectively.
Victoria, should I be thrilled or terrified that Ukraine has launched an offensive into Russia? By the way, I applaud them for it. You can't play defense the whole time. But Ukraine controlling 390 miles of Russian territory is not something Russia is going to stand for. They'll do anything to stop that. Should I be worried?
Again, this is another example of the situation getting out of U.S. control because we're not exerting firm leadership. And we at Heritage have had concerns about the Biden-Harris prosecution of the Ukraine war from the earliest days. Their approach has been to sort of incrementally help Ukraine, but never enough to win the war. Had we gone in 2 years ago, absolutely demanded of our European allies that they take the lead of what was, the last time I looked at a map, a war in Europe, but we would help them get to victory in under a year. But what we've done, as I said, is sort of dribble and drabble out support and then sort of lift these restrictions. It's not clear why the restrictions were on in the first place, but it doesn't seem to be happening strategically. And so, I agree, I don't have tremendous respect for Russia's sovereign boundaries because they don't have respect for anybody else's. But yes, that kind of incursion into Russia, while Russia is also making advances in eastern Ukraine, creates a very fluid dynamic, and our president's asleep on the beach.
Do you think Americans are starting to understand government is the reason they can't afford things anymore? Because that is what drives me crazy. Yeah, Democrats are bad. Republicans are pretty much just as bad when it comes to spending. But people don't seem to vote with their wallet. We have another poll just came out. Everyone knows prices are high, but they don't intend to vote with their wallet. Why?
Yeah, I mean, really, I blame media. About half the country, I think, does understand what's happening. They understand that government is causing it. The problem is that the other half of the country still believes what media tells them. And media it's not really almost a Republican or a Democrat thing. Media is the pro-government party. Government media wants more spending. It wants to cover up what's causing the inflation. So they will try to sugarcoat all of these numbers in the way that works best for the uniparty. And when it comes to inflation, we've seen it, it was Putin's price hikes for a minute there. It was people buying too much on Amazon. It was the boat stuck in the Suez, right? It's every excuse under the sun, except for the one thing that's actually causing inflation. By the way, it's caused inflation for thousands of years, which is printing the money. And both parties want to keep doing that, right? As long as there's ammunition for Ukraine, the Republicans are happy to sign on to any spending bill. It's really a uniparty issue. And in terms of regular voters understanding that, I think that comes down to the media. 80% of the media wants to carry water for more government spending for the uniparty.
Peter, I've asked about the mentality of this before, but I really am curious what you think these people think. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter who they are in Congress, president. They know these numbers. They know what's causing it. They understand all this, and yet they don't want to stop. None of them want to stop. None of them even want to slow down. Do they just not care?
Yeah, I think it's a problem with our political system in many ways. So if you are running an election and the other guy is promising to throw a party and you're promising to pay for last year's party, no party, we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay off the credit card. Who's going to win that election, right? So the problem fundamentally is that voters do not feel like the spending is real. They don't feel like the deficit is real until they start feeling that, which historically takes a crisis. Until they start feeling that, they're not actually going to vote for the fiscally responsible candidate. If voters are not choosing the fiscally responsible candidate, then it is political suicide to try to go that route. So instead, The parties are essentially doing what voters have told them to do, which is spend as much as possible. Just put it on, either military if you're on one side of it, on welfare, or importing migrants if you're on the other side of it. But there's no space in there for fiscal responsibility because voters aren't demanding it. They're not demanding it, as you say, partly because they don't understand how it works. The media has deceived them. The public education system has deceived them. Partly because so much of it is going, it just goes into deficits. 2 trillion deficit, 3 trillion deficit. What's the difference for the average voter? They don't feel it yet. Eventually they will. And then, of course, we'll get, media telling us how nobody could have possibly seen this coming. But unfortunately, that takes time.
Peter, we now know the interest on the debt has gobbled up half of the government revenue. That is just such a staggering. For the month of July, they gobbled up half the government revenue. Now, please act like I don't know anything, which is not a difficult thing to imagine. Could you explain what exactly that means?
Yeah, so it means that every dollar that you are paying the IRS, 50 cents of that is going out in debt interest. So it's going to Wall Street, it's going to China, and it's paying for past deficits. Never mind future deficits or current deficits. That's just paying for what we've done in the past. The problem is that is skyrocketing. So it's up something like 5-fold since the beginning of COVID. Eventually, it's not going to be 50 cents. It's going to be 100 cents or 150 cents. It just keeps going up. So at some point, that is not sustainable. Something is going to break there. They are going to be unable to raise that much money in capital markets. That then causes a crisis on government bonds. The interest rates on bonds goes up. The debt interest goes up. We've seen this many times in third world countries where eventually they are unable to issue new debt. They're unable to pay the old debt. You get a debt crisis.
Okay, so what does that debt crisis look like? Because it's obviously coming. Only an idiot would say otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time. We've never been here as a country with deficits this large in relative peacetime. Remember, a recession is coming. By all accounts, a recession will eventually come. Historically, if we go by the past 3 or 4 recessions over the past 50 years, those recessions have added about 4 trillion in government spending if we extrapolate. Okay, so the next recession, we are going to be in absolutely unseen territory. At that point, again, if we go back through history, the government is forced to print more money. That means that the federal government issues more debt, and then the Fed ends up buying it. That's what happened with Japan. So the Bank of Japan currently owns most of the government debt. At that point, it's really just a vicious cycle where the government is printing money. Effectively, it's buying its own money, and it's just doing it back and forth and spreading it out into the economy. Once you get into that trap, you get inflation that gets worse and worse and worse every year. Now, we got there 50 years ago in the 1970s. What happened in the 1970s is finally we had a Fed chair who said, enough, we're going to break the back of this inflation. And that was Paul Volcker. And he raised rates to, I think it was 17 or 18%, right? So there were 20% mortgages, all right? It was very tough. We had 2 back-to-back recessions as a result. But my concern is that if we get there again, we're not going to be able to get out of there. And the reason is because Paul Volcker, bless his heart, he cost his boss the election. Jimmy Carter got destroyed. I think he won 1 or 2 states against Reagan. So Washington is dumb, but they're not that dumb. They're not going to do that again. So my concern is that if we fall back into this 1970s script where we're looking at a decade of inflation and slow growth, I'm not sure that we can get out of it this time.
So we're doomed to just death spiral from here? Is that what you think? I know you're not trying to be Debbie Downer, but if the only solution is a solution that won't be implemented, then there are no solutions?
We would, in order to fix it, you would have to have a politician who gets up there and says, we're going to cut spending by 1/3. Okay, that's what it would take to end the deficits at this point. So they're collecting something like 4.5 trillion. They're spending more like 6.5 trillion. You would have to cut by 1/3. You would have to, I mean, that's a lot, all right? You would have to essentially close everything but Social Security and minimal border defense, all right? It is pretty close to impossible. Moreover, if you suggest that, you are going to get slaughtered in the election. They're going to go through line by line. They're going to say, what about the poor children who can't afford their infant formula. I mean, they're going to go through a list of about 10,000 things that the government spends money on that are sympathetic. They're going to ignore the other million things that none of us want the government to be spending on. But anyway, that's the game that's played. So if you look at the political calculus of it, it's very hard to see how somebody can come in here and cut the spending. Now, we could fix it structurally. Okay, one idea, Warren Buffett, his idea is that you tell Congress, you pass one law, and that law says if Congress cannot balance the budget, then they all have to resign their seats and they have a lifetime ban from politics. So that's the Buffett rule. I love that one. That one would work, but good luck getting that one through. The other possibilities might be, a balanced budget amendment where Congress has to balance the budget every single year. Again, that's been tried many times. For obvious reasons, Congress doesn't want to play ball because they love spending all that money. That's the reason they come to work. It's the reason they get political donations. It's why they're there in the first place. So really, you would either need some kind of structural change like that, or you would need some kind of maverick to come in there and actually say, we're going to slash spending. For that, I think in both cases, realistically, our best odds are if we get a crisis, then voters are ready for change. That's what happened with Ronald Reagan. Media, did the same game on him as they did on Trump. They said he's a radical, he's going to destroy the country, he's crazy, he's going to start World War III. Exact same playbook as they do today. But guess what? Americans were desperate enough in the 1970s that they said, enough, we need somebody new. Now, Ronald Reagan did not cut spending, it's true, but he did grow the economy so that the economy could end up growing into the debt. That's probably the best case scenario.